You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like that a lot.
The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
Good day, tokers and tokettes and non-toking lovers of liberty. It is Monday, January 5th, 2015, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Thank you so much for joining us here. Happy New Year to everyone out there listening and watching on our new high-definition 720p video screen. You can catch our webcam screen at 420radio.org. We've got new pop-ups available for 720p high def, or if you're in a low bandwidth situation, there's a medium and low def pop-up as well. Just look down there on 420radio.org. You'll figure it out. Unfortunately, I had to take the chat window off the front page, but you can get a pop-up for that. Just click the pop-up and chat away. All right, we've got a great show coming up for you today. Joining us at the bottom of the hour, we have got Dr. Mitch Earlywine in our Cannabis Q&A, where you can ask your live questions on cannabis science, culture, history, and health of the good doctor. And we've got some interesting studies to talk about today on overdose deaths in medical marijuana states. We've got whole plant cannabis for non-cancer pain. We've got cannabis helping reduce brain damage from stroke and cannabis use and depression. All of that information coming up today on Cannabis Q&A with Dr. Mitch Earlywine. Our phone number to call in at the bottom of the hour will be 971-533-7111. You can always find that phone number on the front page at 420radio.org. Then at 45 past, we got a special call-in guest. CNBC correspondent Harry Smith will be joining us to talk about the premiere of the new CNBC documentary tonight, Marijuana Country, The Cannabis Boom. That's tonight at 9 p.m. Pacific and Eastern Time on CNBC. Harry Smith himself will be joining us to talk about that. He's the host of the show. He's done a couple of other marijuana-related documentaries that have gotten great ratings and great rotation. We're really pleased to have him calling in today. Also on the show today, we're going to go behind the headlines. And in Behind the Headlines today, an interesting look at the very legitimate legal definitions of marijuana in the state of Colorado and how a comma, a simple punctuation mark, might make hash oil illegal in the state of Colorado. It's an interesting twist. We'll look at that and Behind the Headlines right after our 420 radio news. Also on the show today, we're going to do some drug war data mining. You may have seen the press releases out there about the new 2012-2013 National Survey on Drug Use and Health data. This is the state level data, the first state level data we've gotten since there's been marijuana legalization in Washington and Colorado. And a lot of people made a big deal about how marijuana use went up in Washington and Colorado. We're going to get underneath into the details of those numbers and show you how marijuana legalization really didn't have much more effect on marijuana use rates than it did in red states. So stay tuned for that coming up after the 20 after break. But we start everything off with the 420 radio news. And in the headlines today, a Montana judge has blocked key provisions of the state's medical marijuana law. The administration of President Obama told a federal judge in Sacramento that pot is a dangerous drug with no medical value. Rhode Island turns out to be the state where you've got the greatest amount of marijuana smoking, not Colorado or Washington. We've also got in Colorado, the Colorado colleges and universities are seeking permission from the federal government to grow marijuana for research purposes. That should be interesting. And a look at marijuana use by soldiers in the Army and Air Force and military bases in Colorado and Washington. Interesting data coming out from the Colorado Springs Gazette. Stay tuned. The 420 Radio News is next. You're listening to the Russ Belville Show on 420radio.org.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
420 Radio, your ticket to the Boston Freedom Rally.
Jackson is already getting Charlotte's Web.
So that's how he takes cannabis.
You know this is making a difference.
I've seen it work. My son would probably be dead today if it wasn't for cannabis. This isn't about getting high. This isn't about using marijuana. This is about giving a child and anybody with an illness or disorder the opportunity to have compassion, to have relief, to not feel pain.
Colorado, where the grass is greener, the candy's sweeter, and the money's a whole lot richer.
We did about $4.5 million last year.
What do you think you're going to do this year?
A little over $9 million.
CNBC cuts through the smoke surrounding the legal pot scene.
People are getting to be connoisseurs. It's like wine.
And the thriving black market.
You're the new Mexico.
We are.
CNBC returns to marijuana country, the cannabis boom. Premieres Monday, January 5th at 9 on the fastest growing cable network in primetime, CNBC.
It's time for the 420 Radio News, covering the latest headlines in consumer cannabis, medical marijuana, and industrial hemp. Transcripts of 420 Radio News are available daily on our website at 420radio.org. Now, here's Russ Belville with your marijuana headlines in 4 minutes and 20 seconds.
This is your 420 Radio News for Monday, January 5th, 2015. A Montana judge permanently has banned enforcement of key provisions of the state's medical marijuana law. District Judge James Reynolds of Helena on Friday permanently blocked several provisions, including the ban on the advertising of marijuana and the prohibition against commercial sale for profit of marijuana to people authorized to obtain it for medical reasons. The provision against for-profit sales essentially meant that medical marijuana cardholders had to grow their own pot. Reynolds struck down provisions that restrict a medical marijuana provider from assisting more than 3 people licensed by the state to obtain legal pot or marijuana-infused products, again without them being able to be paid. The judge also ruled against a part of the law that required the state to provide the Board of Medical Examiners with the names of any physician who within a 12-month period wrote certifications for medical marijuana for 25 or more patients. 2 weeks after President Obama signed legislation prohibiting federal interference with state medical marijuana laws, his administration has told a federal judge in Sacramento that pot is still a dangerous drug with no medical value. The U.S. Attorney's Office, representing Obama's Justice Department, made the argument in a court filing Wednesday opposing a challenge to the long-standing federal law that classifies marijuana as a Schedule I drug, along with heroin, LSD, and ecstasy, substances that have a high potential for abuse and no safe medical use. While there may be, quote, some dispute among doctors as to whether marijuana is medicine, end quote, there is ample evidence to support the government's conclusion that, quote, this psychoactive addictive drug is not accepted as safe for medical use at this time, even with medical supervision, end quote, Assistant U.S. Attorney Gregory Broderick wrote. Rhode Islanders continue to use marijuana and illicit drugs at the highest rates in the nation, according to a recently released annual survey. In no other state did as many people report having used marijuana in the past month, 14% of those aged 12 and older, up from 13% the previous year, according to the National Survey on Drug Use and Health. Rhode Island was also tops for those who reported having used marijuana in the previous year, 20%, up from 19%. In the survey, Rhode Island actually edged out Colorado, which has legalized marijuana use and became the first state in the nation to allow recreational sales of the drug. Colorado had the second highest number of people reporting marijuana use in the past month, 12.7%. But the survey cannot fully reflect the effect of changes in Colorado, since legalization of marijuana took place only in late 2012 and marijuana shops did not open until 2014. In a letter sent last month, the state attorney general's office asked federal health and education officials for permission for Colorado's colleges and universities to, quote, obtain marijuana from non-federal government sources, end quote, for research purposes. The letter isn't more specific on how the state's higher education institutions might score weed, but it was sent pursuant to a law passed in 2014 requiring state officials to ask that Colorado's colleges and universities be allowed to, quote, cultivate marijuana and its component parts. Current research is riddled with bias and inefficiencies and often conflicts with one another, reads the letter, written by Deputy Attorney General David Blake. He continues, quote, "It is critical that we be allowed to fill the void of scientific research, and this may only be done with your assistance and cooperation," end quote. Colorado last month awarded more than $8 million for medical marijuana research to study whether the drug treats post-traumatic stress disorder, epilepsy, and other health problems. Fewer soldiers are testing positive for marijuana in the 2 states where recreational use of the drug is illegal, an Army study of the issue obtained by the Colorado Springs Gazette has found. The change in Washington and Colorado, where legal pot is available near large Army bases, is small, but it's the reverse of what military leaders said would happen in Colorado Springs with marijuana legalization. Quote, "With one minor exception, the data is trending downwards, though it remains relatively flat and the changes are statistically insignificant," end quote. Army spokesman Lieutenant Colonel Justin Platt wrote in an email from the Pentagon. The number of positive marijuana tests at Fort Carson, Colorado dropped, as well as Joint Base Lewis McChord in Washington. This has been your 420 Radio News for Monday, January 5th, 2015. I'm Russ Belville.
.420 Radio, freeing your mind 24 hours a day.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel?
The Russ Belville Show reminds you to never smoke and drive impaired. Hang out for a while. Share.
Georgia.
Hi, this is Willie Nelson. Alcohol prohibition didn't work in the 1920s, and marijuana prohibition isn't working today. It's time we stopped arresting responsible marijuana smokers. It's the fair thing to do.
For more information, contact NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Call toll-free 888-67-NORML or visit their website at norml.org.
The International Cannabis Business Conference is coming to the Hyatt Regency Hotel in San Francisco, California, February 15th and 16th, 2015. Don't miss this exclusive opportunity to hear from the experts on the future of marijuana commerce, including scientists like Dr. Carl Hart, Dr. Amanda Ryman, and Dr. Stanton Peel, policy experts like Ethan Nadelman from Drug Policy Alliance, Anthony Johnson from Oregon's legalization campaign, travel author Rick Steves from Washington's legalization campaign, and California legalization pioneer Dale Sky Jones. Business experts like Harborside Steve D'Angelo, RQ Group's Troy Dayton, and UFCW union leader Dan Rush. Cannabis journalists like Ricardo Baca, Steve Bloom, and Doug Fine, and California Republican Congressman Dana Rohrabacher, plus many, many more. Tickets are on sale now at internationalcbc.com, but hurry, last year's conference in Portland, Oregon was a sellout. International Cannabis Business Conference, San Francisco, California, February 15th and 16th, internationalcbc.com.
Welcome back, everyone. 13 after the hour, and time for us to go behind the headlines where a comma might make Colorado hash oil illegal. The Colorado Attorney General John Suthers has issued an opinion that Amendment 64 does not guarantee the right of adults to produce hash oil from their legal marijuana plants. Suthers' statement on the issue explains that, quote, "To decriminalize dangerous and unreasonable behavior in which people are getting hurt and houses are blowing up defies the intent of the voters," adding, "Colorado is experiencing a real public safety issue as a result of unsafe and unlicensed hash oil manufacturing and production," end quote. Now, this all resulted from the trial of a Mesa County man. His name is Eugene Christensen. And Christensen was busted when he was allegedly making butane hash oil, leading to an explosion that damaged his home and left him injured. Christensen is charged with arson, reckless endangerment, and manufacture of marijuana concentrate. Now, it's that final charge that Christensen's attorney is fighting. He argues that the law against personal manufacture of marijuana concentrate is unconstitutional in the wake of Amendment 64's passage. He points to Section 3B of Amendment 64 that allows all adults, quote, "the right of possessing, growing, processing, or transporting no more than 6 marijuana plants," end quote. Extracting hash oil, he argues, is merely processing one's legal plants. The Attorney General argues, however, that the definition of marijuana in Amendment 64's Section 2F clearly indicates that hash oil is not marijuana. Marijuana is constitutionally defined as, quote, all parts of the plant of the genus cannabis, whether growing or not, the seeds thereof, the resin extracted from any part of the plant, and any compound, manufacture, salt, derivative, mixture, or preparation of the plant, its seeds, or its resin, including marijuana concentrate, end quote. Well, that would seem to support Christensen's argument. He was merely extracting the resin from his plants to create marijuana concentrate. But supporting the Attorney General's interpretation is the next part of the definition, which states that marijuana, quote, does not include industrial hemp, nor does it include fiber produced from the stalks, oil, or cake made from the seeds of the plant, end quote. Unfortunately, that's written, does not include fiber produced from the stalks, comma, oil, comma, or cake made from the seeds of the plant. According to the Attorney General, the comma that separates oil refers to hash oil. Literally, the Attorney General writes, quote, construing the general term of marijuana concentrate to include oil would make the provision excluding oil meaningless, end quote. So he's saying in the first part of this clause, we can define marijuana as marijuana concentrate, but since the second part of the clause says here's things that aren't marijuana and oil is all by itself with commas, then it can't possibly be marijuana concentrate. You couldn't say that something's legal at the first part and then say the same thing is illegal in the second part. That's his argument. But if hash oil is a separate thing from marijuana, then what the hell is resin extracted from any part of the plant? I mean, surely all hash oils are concentrates, but not all concentrates are hash oil. You know, for example, bubble hash or finger hash. That's a concentrate of the resin without being an oil. Could this one little comma really end up defining hash oil as not a marijuana concentrate, counter to all logic? Look, as I read it now, fair warning, I'm no lawyer, but as I read the does not include section, I think the oil comma was meant to refer to hemp seed oil. Listen to me when I read it again. Does not include industrial hemp, nor does it include fiber produced from the stalks, oil, or cake made from the seeds of the plant. Within that, I think oil was meant to refer to hemp seed oil. It is clearly laying out that industrial hemp is not marijuana, hemp stalk fiber isn't marijuana, and hemp seed cake isn't marijuana. So within that context, I'd argue that oil is referring to oil from the hemp seed, not oil from the marijuana. But this is the way laws get written sometimes, and sometimes the difference between an A and a shall and a may, a comma and a semicolon can make all the difference in the world. It should have been written, does not include industrial hemp, nor does it include fiber produced from the stalks, comma, nor oil and cake made from the seeds of the plant. Now that would have been clear. But Southers makes this point in a footnote, quote, the three independent clauses do not modify each other, as fiber cannot be produced from oil or cake. Likewise, the phrase from the seeds of the plants cannot be read to modify the preceding two clauses, because fiber cannot be made from the seeds of a plant. And to the extent the defendant intends to argue that the three clauses are referring to products made from industrial hemp, such a reading would be incorrect because it ignores that industrial hemp is set off by its own subordinating conjunction of does not include. End quote. So, to the Attorney General's reading, things that are not marijuana include industrial hemp, fiber produced from the stalks, which he's seeming to argue is not industrial hemp, oil that is neither industrial hemp nor hemp seed oil, since the seeds of the plant only refers to the cake portion, and the cake made from the seeds of the plant. Doesn't it seem odd to define hash oil along with 3 non-psychoactive cannabis products as being non-marijuana items? I have no prediction as to how this is going to run down in the Colorado courts. It seems clear to me the intent of the authors was to make it so that hemp seed oil wasn't defined as marijuana. We'll see how they decide.
All we want to do is pump you up.
That's right. We're here to pump you up full of knowledge, statistics, reasoning, compassion, all of the tools you need to get marijuana legalized in your state, in your city, wherever you are. This can happen. Momentum's on our side. This is inevitable. We'll be here every weekday giving you the tools to make it happen. And that includes our next segment, Drug War Data Mining. Stay tuned for that. The Russ Belville Show. We're back in a minute.
420 Radio, your ticket to Seattle Hemp Fest. Hey tokers and tokettes, Radical Russ here for the Canador, a practical solution to keep herbs from drying. The Canador is the perfect airtight storage system for your fine herbs, from the half-inch thick walnut and cherry wood construction, clear top perforated jars for storage, and the humidity bead system that keeps your herbs at a perfect 65% relative humidity. I keep all my herbs in the Canador, and you should too. Check out Canador.com for more information. Get.Buzz. .Buzz is the internet platform that fuels community interest, excitement, and new experiences. .Buzz is the premier online destination for internet users seeking the latest news on a variety of topics. .Buzz appeals to groups active in blogging, communications, journalism, advertising, and marketing. .Buzz offers registrants a stronger alternative to the shrinking namespace of existing top-level domain names, such as .com, .net, and .org. Get your name now at get.buzz. Arguing for the end of adult marijuana prohibition is easy because we have facts, science, reason, compassion, evidence, truth, and logic on our side. It is even easier when researchers catalog it all for us. Learn how to gather the facts on marijuana use, arrests, seizures, rehabs, drug tests, and more in this edition of Drug War Data Mining.
Welcome back, everyone. 22 after the hour, and the new 2-year state-level numbers from the National Survey on Drug Use and Health came out last month, and judging by the reaction of the news media, it seems legalization of marijuana in Colorado and Washington has turned everyone there into bong-toting pot zombies, shuffling endlessly in search of strains! The headline in the International Business Times, quote, marijuana use jumps in Colorado, making it second highest across the U.S. Associated Press, their headline, Colorado stoners storm up U.S. marijuana user rankings. Washington state use surges 20%. Oh, frightening. But when you look closer at the numbers from this 2012 National Survey on Drug Use and Health, there are some remarkable surprises that most of the news media missed in their hurry to report that legalization increased marijuana use. So for analysis, I entered all the figures from 2010-2011 and the new 2012-2013 into a spreadsheet. Then I color-coded the states, green for the pot states, light green for the medical states that have home grow, green text for the medical states that don't have home grow, and then red text for everyone else. Basically compare the red states and the green states, and did a lot of little sorts on this spreadsheet, found some interesting data. The first thing that we found is that for all marijuana users age 12 and older, Colorado's monthly use rate jumped from 10.41% to 12.7%. The overall change in that, we're going to call that delta, the overall delta was 22%. That's the figure that the news media have salivated over. Oh my God, it went up 22% in Colorado after legalization. But if we do a descending sort on Delta for all 50 states, we get a stunning surprise. Of all the U.S. states, Georgia had the greatest increase in monthly pot use. An almost 30% increase, well above Colorado's 22%. Washington's 20% increase was tailed slightly by Missouri's almost 20% increase. Washington and Missouri had just about the same increase in their pot smoking rate. In fact, there are as many prohibition states in the top 10 with double-digit percentage increases, that would be Georgia, Missouri, Utah, and Virginia, as medical marijuana states in the top 10, Maryland, Maine, New Hampshire, and Hawaii, of the top 10 states that had the greatest increase in marijuana use. Now, one primary fear that our opponents have been using is that legalization is going to lead more kids to use. And indeed, if we look at the figures for 12 to 17-year-olds in Colorado, the monthly teen use in Colorado went up from 10.47 to 11.16. That's an increase of 6.59%. In Washington State, the monthly teen use increased by 3.81%. But if we look at the data for all 50 states, of all of them, Florida had the greatest increase in teen monthly use, a change in rate of almost 7%. Utah came in third. It went up 4.49%. And again, like the last time, there are as many red states in the top 10, Florida, Utah, Tennessee, and Louisiana, as there are medical marijuana states in the top 10, Rhode Island, Maine, New York, and Michigan. But what about the college kids? Certainly, legalization for those age 21 and older means that college seniors can score marijuana for 18-year-old freshmen, right? And indeed, Washington's monthly use rate from age 18 to 25 increased about 9%. Colorado's use for age 18 to 25 increased about 8.3%. But guess what when you look at all 50 states? That's right, Missouri actually led the nation in college-age marijuana increase at a whopping 15.74% increase, almost twice the rate of increase compared to Colorado for ages 18 to 25. And this time, only 2 medical marijuana states are in the top 10, Maryland and Maine, and 6 red states, Missouri, Louisiana, Utah, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Wyoming, made it. And half of those states beat the 2 legalized states in the rate of college-age marijuana use increase. Now, people have pointed out that Rhode Island, not Colorado or Washington, has the highest overall rate at 14%, but a major factor in why Colorado and Washington rose so much is that 6 of the top 10 states saw declines in their monthly marijuana use. That would be Alaska, Vermont, Oregon, Montana, New Mexico, and California. All saw declines in their monthly marijuana use. And it's worth noting that aside from Rhode Island, every medical marijuana state in the top 10 that allows for home cultivation saw declines in 12 and older monthly marijuana use rates. And how has this affected the border states? 6 of the 7 border states, well, of the ones that border Colorado, 3 of them, Nebraska, New Mexico, and Oklahoma, had declines in their rate of marijuana use. 4 of them, Idaho included since it's bordering Washington, had increases in their marijuana use rate. But only Utah increased amongst the kids.
420 Radio, your ticket to the High Times Cannabis Cups. The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, treat law enforcement with respect and stand up for your rights by repeating, "I respectfully invoke all of my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak with my attorney." Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215 or on the web at omarfigueroa.com.
NORMAL stands for Responsible Adult Cannabis Use. If cannabis use is causing problems in your life, consider taking a break or seeking medical assistance. Consider ceasing cannabis use if you have a family history of mental illness. Don't drive or operate heavy machinery while impaired by cannabis use. Cannabis use is not without risks, even though the risks may be far less than those posed by legal drugs.
Are you a hypocrite? If you live a closeted cannabis lifestyle, you are. Read about 7 people living a closeted cannabis lifestyle who are on the verge of coming out in The Hypocrites by Mara K. Eaton. Available at areyouahypocrite.net. You can purchase the book on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, also available on iTunes. Check out Mara K. Eaton on Facebook as well. Learn more at areyouahypocrite.net.
It's time for the Russ Belville Show's Cannabis Q&A with Dr. Mitch Earleywine. Dr. Earleywine is a professor of psychology at the State University of New York at Albany and a leading author and researcher on cannabinoids and health, who pins the Ask Dr. Mitch column for High Times Magazine. Get your questions ready in our live chat or call in to 971-533-7111 now.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Half past, and we're joined by Dr. Mitch Earleywine. Happy New Year, Dr. Mitch.
And a Happy New Year to you, Russ.
I sure hope things are going well for you out there in Albany. I want to remind everyone that we are live here with Dr. Mitch, as we are always at 3:30 p.m. Pacific time. Our phone number here is 971-533-7111. We'll take your calls and questions from our chat room just as soon as we get some of these subjects out of the way. You know, we've had some time off, and there's been a whole bunch of new studies that have come out. Dr. Mitch, let's get the first word from you in what's the latest in cannabis science.
Oh, there's a really nice coverage by Ariel Girard on how cannabis helps reduce brain damage caused by ischemic strokes. And Ariel's at the Albany Medical School up here, and I've been kind of her informal mentor since she contacted me, and it's just delightful to see her giving this the coverage it deserves. And this is actually one of the best ways to look at this. This is a meta-analysis of a whole bunch of experimental studies where you actually end up giving mostly rodents these strokes using these kind of gruesome procedures, but we're getting consistent data that cannabinoids really make sure their impact is markedly smaller than what you would get in the control group that doesn't have it. And I think, you know, the evidence is so compelling now, we really need to make this available for anybody who's at risk for head injury.
When you mention that it's ischemic strokes, what does that mean for folks out there that don't know?
Essentially, you have hemorrhagic strokes where the capillary in the brain essentially bursts or starts to leak, and that's different from ischemic stroke, where basically you have a blockage from, say, a blood clot or something like that, or dare I say, you know, big nasty piece of cholesterol or something along those lines, and it's clearly having a really good impact on making sure that those have markedly less trouble created when cannabinoids are in the system.
So if we knew that someone was in the midst of having one of these strokes, passing them our vapor pen might be, you know, a good Samaritan act?
As insane as that sounds, in fact, it really does seem consistent with this animal literature. And, you know, we're, you know, making a bit of a leap, but I think we, you know, used animals on this in part because the stroke literature suggests that this procedure really does parallel literature in humans, and so I really feel like it's the kind of thing we really need to pay attention to.
How would someone recognize the signs of someone having a stroke like that?
Oh, it's kind of a sad thing to watch, but basically you sort of see a numbness or weakness in their face, so sometimes you'll ask them to smile and you'll notice that one side is going up but the other side is not. You'll ask them to speak if they're having any trouble. They'll notice some problems seeing in one eye or even in both eyes in severe cases. A whole lot of sort of sudden headache symptoms, some dizziness, trouble walking or staying balanced. It's a pretty serious thing, and you know, obviously if we could prevent it through other means, that would be great. But having these cannabinoids available does seem to minimize the impact.
That's a remarkable information that we're getting and learning about marijuana and its ability to help people with all sorts of brain damages and ischemic stroke. Boy, that's really compelling stuff. All right, let's take a look at some other studies. There's an interesting look at how the 420-friendly states have a decrease in painkiller overdose deaths, particularly opioids. What can you make of that data?
And we've talked about this before, but cannabis in moderate doses really is helpful for pain. And we know the opiates tend to, you know, people develop tolerance to the opiates really rapidly. And so if there's a chance to decrease your opiate use by basically using cannabis as well, this is a great opportunity to make sure you don't risk overdose under those circumstances. And I feel like that's probably the most parsimonious explanation of these data. Some folks say, well, in fact, a lot of folks are using cannabis and no opiates at all, and that's minimizing the chance for overdose as well, and I certainly can't argue with that.
And dovetailing into this other study about whole plant cannabis as an add-on therapy for chronic non-cancer pain. What do we find out from this?
This is the delightful literature where basically we're showing that if you are using an opiate and you have a small amount of cannabis added on, you don't have to increase your opiate dose to get the same amount of pain relief. Or if you're willing to alternate, so one day you might use the Vicodin or something like that, and then the next day use cannabis, so you don't develop tolerance as rapidly. That seems to really have a lot of advantage. And I, want to emphasize that nobody likes to talk about it, but the opiates are super constipating and have all these other crazy side effects that cannabis really doesn't have. So I really think this is worth it, and I think we're going to see medical marijuana states keep improving in these domains.
When they mention non-cancer pain, that tells us that there's other designations of pain. How many different types of pain are there, and does cannabis work better on some and not others?
We just don't have the literature. I wish we had the data that we really need for this, because unfortunately the experimental pain we've had are things like just having your finger with a hot thing on it. We've occasionally had folks who are getting multiple removed, and we can try to do it that way, but it's really hard to do experimentally, and so it's unclear if cancer pain and non-cancer pain are really that disparate.
Interesting. All right, we're speaking with Dr. Mitch Earlywine in our Cannabis Q&A. We'll take your live calls at 971-533-7111, or you can get into our chat room available at 420radio.org and ustream.tv. And there was another interesting study here, or maybe it was a review, claiming no longitudinal association between cannabis use and depression. Now, we know many people claim to use marijuana to treat depression, but our opponents often say it causes depression. What does this latest data tell us?
In fact, this is the third time we've seen this now. So anybody who's jumping up and down saying cannabis is going to create depression really just doesn't have research on their side. And I'm not even sure what else to say. I mean, cannabis doesn't cause all kinds of things. And the fact that we're proving this, for the third time now, I really hope people can understand that cannabis is not a source of depression. And any early data where it suggests there was a correlation, it really was because of that self-medication.
Interesting. All right. Another topic that we've been covering here on the Russ Belville Show is this new state-level data, National Survey of Drug Use and Health for 2012-2013. They take it in 2-year chunks because at the state level, you got to have more data to make it reliable. So we've got 2012, where marijuana wasn't legal in Washington and Colorado, and 2013, where it was legal. And, well, what do you know? More people say that they're using marijuana. What do you make of all this data?
It's funny because these are hard to interpret, in part because they focus a lot on percent change from what it was before, and it really kind of depends on where you started. So if you've only got 1% of your population using cannabis, and then suddenly 2%, well, ooh, that's a 100% increase. So you really got to keep those interpretations in mind. But the bottom line here is,
we seem to have lost Dr. Mitch on the connection there. Are you still there, Dr. Mitch? Oh, no, I'm not sure what's happening there. Let's see if we can dial back out. We're listening to Dr. Mitch Earlywine, the author of Pot and Politics and Understanding Marijuana. We'll see if we can get him reconnected here on the Skype line. Dialing out now. This is how you know we're doing it live, but we do this live every Monday at 3:30 p.m. Pacific time. We talk with Dr. Mitch Earlywine, who's one of America's leading researchers on marijuana and the people that use it, as well as the chairman of the board of directors for the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. And doesn't seem like we're getting back out on the connection to Dr. Mitch, unfortunately. So we're going to have to call it early. Thank you, Dr. Mitch, for joining us. And when we come back, we'll have Harry Smith from CNBC's new documentary, Marijuana Country, The Cannabis Boom. You're listening to The Russ Belville Show.
Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
420 Radio, turning red states and blue states green.
You know Herb Thrasher from the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour. Now get ready for Herb Age Designs for the proud cannabis consumer. Herb Age Designs, lifestyle gear for the 420 friendly. Herb Age Designs, we've got Frisbee golf discs and durable hemp gear. Herb Age Designs, we've got shot glasses, drinking glasses, coffee mugs, and beer cozies. Check us out on Facebook and online at herbagedesigns.com. And follow Herb Age and Herb Thrasher.
The truly large black market is the extent to which we're becoming the supplier of marijuana in states where it's illegal. So we are the black market for Nebraska, Wyoming, Utah, and apparently up to 40 other states in the United States that have indicated to us we've seized Colorado packaged marijuana. You're the new Mexico. We are. At least with marijuana, we're competing with Mexico.
Colorado, where the grass is greener, the candy's sweeter, and the money's a whole lot richer.
We did about $4.5 million last year.
What do you think you're going to do this year?
A little over $9 million.
CNBC cuts through the smoke surrounding the legal pot scene.
People are getting to be connoisseurs. It's like wine.
And the thriving black market.
You're the new Mexico.
We are. CNBC returns to marijuana country, the cannabis boom. Premieres Monday, January 5th at 9 on the fastest growing cable network in primetime, CNBC.
Despite strong public support for medical cannabis, decriminalization, and legalization in Georgia, the state spends $121 million every year to arrest, prosecute, and imprison Georgians for simple possession. Each year, the state of Georgia spends less on driver services, agriculture, and forestry combined. What else can $121 million a year do in Georgia? With that much money, the state could hire and keep 3,000 more teachers, improve roads and bridges, provide tax relief for small businesses, repair aging sewage systems, or lower taxes. But right now, that's millions of dollars of your tax money wasted on failed enforcement. Tell your representative you're tired of wasteful spending and ask them to end cannabis prohibition. Join the conversation at www.peachtreenormal.org. Peachtree Normal is a proud affiliate of NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws.
In the interest of fair and balanced journalism, the Russ Belville Show presents the anti-drug public service announcement of the day.
What time did you get up this morning?
I don't remember. I don't know. 3 o'clock.
And what did you do today?
I don't know. Nothing, I guess.
When was the last time you had a girlfriend? When was the last time you had a job? When was the last time you had dinner with a family? When was the last time you smoked pot?
Danny, wake up. Come on, Danny. It's time to go to work. Danny, wake up. Danny, time to go to work.
Don't let pot slap you around. Wake up.
This has been the anti-drug public service announcement of the day. To cure this sort of reefer madness, listen to the Russ Belville Show every weekday on 420radio.org. When you are starting up a medical cannabis business, you want a fired-up lawyer who understands the needs of cannabis consumers. The law office of Lauren Vasquez is your fired-up lawyer for the cannabis industry. Visit her website, fireduplawyer.com, or call 1-855-MMJ-LAWS for more information. That's 855-665-5297 for Lauren Vasquez, your fired-up lawyer, or email fireduplawyer@gmail.com. As marijuana moves into the mainstream, more filmmakers are taking a look at all aspects of cannabis culture. These days, marijuana movies are about more than hiding from Sergeant Stadenko or trying to get to White Castle for the munchies. Join with us as we explore the latest in the cannabis cinema.
All right, welcome back, everybody. 44 after the hour, and joining us on our Skype line, we have Harry Smith from CNBC. Harry, welcome to the show.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. It's great to speak with you, and thanks for reaching out to us here at the Russ Belville Show.
Happy to do it.
All right. Well, Happy New Year. And of course, for the new year, you guys get to be the New Year's baby as far as new marijuana documentaries. The show is Marijuana Country, the Cannabis Boom. Tell us about this newest iteration of these series you've been doing.
Well, we did an hour documentary earlier in 2014, in February of 2014, sort of documenting the rollout of recreational marijuana in Colorado. And believe me, I've spent almost a month out there in the past year, and every day I'm out there, I'm kind of amazed at what's going on a bunch of different levels. This is a part of the culture that's been behind curtains to a great extent for decades, and it's almost like it's pot's coming out party. So there are a lot of stories to tell. Every day that we're out there, we're more fascinated than the day before. And, as Governor Hickenlooper in Colorado has said, this is a giant social experiment, and we're happy to have a front row seat to, see what we can see.
The show is on tonight. It's debuting at 9 o'clock Pacific and Eastern time on CNBC. You can check your cable and satellite listings to find the channel in your area. And Harry, you give us an interesting perspective because, of course, we're on 420 Radio. This is a show that's dedicated to marijuana, and the people listening are very knowledgeable about the subject. You come to this as someone from a hard news, a mainstream background. What was most surprising to you in discovering this new marketplace?
Where do I start? I think one of the big differences is the western part of the United States versus the eastern part of the United States. Mm-hmm. There's very, very little medical marijuana around New York. It does exist in New Jersey in a limited way. It does exist in Massachusetts in a sort of more growing way, but still very limited. It's not like there are dispensaries on street corners like there are in California and there are in Colorado and elsewhere in the West. So all of this is still new to a huge segment of the audience. And I think as it's rolled out in the West, it's become more and more a sort of to excuse the expression, not the acronym, but a normal part of the culture. Mm-hmm. And for people back east still, it's just an eye-popping event. And I think for something that's been, held as sort of a boogeyman for so long, I think it's still kind of shocking for some folks to see.
That's a great perspective. We're speaking with Harry Smith from CNBC's Marijuana Country, the Cannabis Boom, premiering tonight on CNBC, 9 o'clock Eastern and Pacific time. We have a clip from the episode. This one deals with the edibles explosion, a surprise even to some of us in the industry, how this turned out. Let's take a look at this clip, and we'll be back with Harry right after.
But perhaps the most popular alternative to smoking pot is eating it.
Tastes like candy, just like a pixie stick. Not for children, no.
And the array of choices is staggering.
Chocolate, candy, drinks. We have these incredible bars, which are ranging from 25 to 100 milligrams.
What are these things that are right here?
These are our Dixie rolls.
Yeah.
These are chocolate products.
Right.
We also make a very high-quality truffle. We make what's called a Colorado bar.
Chuck Smith is a co-founder of Dixie Brands. Dixie wants to be the General Mills of edible marijuana.
I still want to reinforce that Dixie is the iconic brand.
We are the largest, what are called infused products manufacturer in the state of Colorado. We make all types of consumable products, food products. They may be sodas, tinctures, mints. We also do topicals, lotions, and salves and balms, all infused with cannabis.
Dixie has been supplying the medical market since 2009. But in the first 2 months of 2014, Smith says Dixie's revenues jumped 500%.
Colorado.
That's right. The show is on tonight, Marijuana Country, at 9 o'clock. We're speaking to Harry Smith about the program. And edibles did get a lot of headlines in the first few months of legalization in Colorado due to the high-profile death that happened to the young student who had jumped off of a balcony, and also the man who had shot his wife. He apparently had also been involved with some painkillers in some sort of way. But as you did reporting on this, Harry, what was your take on the edibles market and how that unfolded in Colorado?
I think the sort of other real general issue with the edibles was you get people coming off of airplanes. And listen, we've stood in dispensaries for days and days at a time and watched bud tenders very carefully walk people through, this is what you need to do, this is what you can take, have you ever tried this before, when was the last time, et cetera, et cetera. People are very mindful of people we met who work behind the counters. But if people come in from out of state who haven't used cannabis in years, they take it back to their hotel room, they take a bite, it's 20 minutes later, I don't feel anything, it's 40 minutes later, I don't feel anything, they take another bite and another bite, and the next thing you know, the whole thing's gone. That's a lot of milligrams in a very short amount of time, and for a system that's not used to it, folks have ended up in very uncomfortable positions. So, as a result, you see a lot of kind of pushback from regulators. You see a lot of real efforts to cooperate within the edibles industry. So that's one of those things that I think is still, kind of a work in progress. You've got people within aspects of government who would like to see that, would even like to see it shut down. State statute says it includes the opportunity for edibles to exist. So that's unlikely that that's going to happen. But I think that's still in a bit of a push and pull sort of situation. I think the industry has also done a good job in trying to educate the public to say, this is not a brownie at your frat house 30 years ago. This is a different thing altogether.
Right. And, of course, we're based here in Portland, Oregon, where we've just passed marijuana legalization. And here through 2015 is where we're putting together the regulations for the system. I would argue that an unintended consequence of not having a public, say, like a pot bar or a place where people could smoke in a public gathering situation has led to this consequence of saying, well, if I can't smoke in my hotel room, maybe I'll try an edible. Did anyone bring that up?
No, I haven't really heard that, as an argument. I think that one of the things that seems to be so attractive about edibles to a lot of people is the fact that they don't want to smoke. They don't want that. They don't want the tar and the whatever else that goes along with the smoke. So edible seems to be an alternative. They say a lot of women like to use edible products. So this is once again, we're in the middle of this giant sort of cultural shift, and what works, what doesn't work, what's effective, what isn't effective, what's a good law, what's not a good law. I think we're all in the middle of seeing how that's all going to get, how all of that is going to shake out.
We're speaking with Harry Smith from CNBC. The show tonight is Marijuana Country, the Cannabis Boom. It premieres at 9 o'clock Eastern and Pacific time on CNBC. Check your cable and satellite listings. And Harry, I'm also interested in the media angle on this. I've been doing this since 2005 or so, and it used to be difficult, if not impossible, to get serious coverage of marijuana and the issues relating to it. Now it seems like I can't flip through the cable dial without landing on some marijuana special. How has this gone down in the offices there at NBC Universal as far as, pitching these shows, and will there be more of these Marijuana Country episodes to look forward to?
I think there's a definite bump in curiosity just because of the legalization that never had happened before. So there's just a bucket of curiosity. You put these shows on, and guess what? People watch, because even people in places where there is no medical or even the prospect of legalization are very, very curious about it. It's sort of like the new thing, and so people are going to pay attention. I don't know if this is going to go on, but certainly, we know statistically there's growth in the number of people who are using cannabis. Demographically, you look at the support for legalization that goes with a younger demographic that's growing in the country. So this is it's all part of the future.
Yeah, and I saw a T-shirt once that said, "If you don't like marijuana, you're not going to like the future." So that may be coming true. Harry, I'm also curious about this. As a journalist, as someone who comes from a hard news background, you're dedicated to presenting a fair and accurate picture. To be objective about this.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I've seen of these documentaries that you've been on, they've been very. I've been pleased with them from my perspective as a marijuana reformer. Have you heard from the other side? Have you heard from the prohibitionist side or the rehab side? Have they complained? What's their take on these documentaries?
It's interesting is anything that you put out into the public airwaves, especially in an age of social media, you're gonna hear praise, and you're gonna hear people complaining about what you didn't cover, what you should have covered, what question you didn't ask. I feel like I've got, because since going back there this year and spending almost a month there, I don't use it. I tried not even to touch the stuff. And I just want to have a degree of deniability to say, you're getting my reporting as it exists, as best as I see it from my years of experience. I'm not here as an advocate or not an advocate. I'm just telling you what I'm seeing. You're seeing this story through my eyes. If that's if some people think that's fair, or some people feel like that's good, that's great. If they don't, I'm just doing the best job I can.
Well, it appears that it's a good job, and it appears that the subjects are happy with it. I mean, the folks, you managed to get people to repeat with you, so I imagine that's a good sign, right?
Well, it is interesting because several of the people that we've talked to in the industry that we've talked with several times over this past year, when we call back and say we want to have another conversation, they seem more than willing to have that conversation. But they're also, highly motivated to get their side of the story out. So there's mutual benefit on both sides, I guess.
All right. Well, Harry Smith from CNBC. The documentary is Marijuana Country, The Cannabis Boom. Premieres tonight at 9 o'clock Eastern and Pacific time, and I presume there will be copious replays of this on CNBC.
I think it's going to repeat at least 3 times tonight, so as these things always do.
All right. And is there any looking forward to another documentary? Any plans for ones on the horizon?
I don't know, but I think people will just be interested in and part of it, the business aspect of itself. One of the things I said earlier today, someone was asking me about, and I said, when we started this in January, some of the places we went, some of the grows, while impressive, seemed fairly amateurish. And in just this year, the difference between what we saw in January and what we were seeing, toward the end of the year, were night and day. The technology that's involved, the expertise that's involved, the ability to really turn over large amounts of crop. It gets more sophisticated by the minute, and you'll be able to see some of that. You'll also one of the other stories that I found most interesting is in Colorado, it's legal to buy marijuana, yet the state statute said very specifically, but if you want to run a drug-free workplace, you're feel free to do that. Well, we talked to a guy who's in the middle of a state Supreme Court case, who's a quadriplegic, who was given a prescription to say, we recommend that marijuana would be helpful to you. It helped him. He was not using while he was at work, but he got fired anyway. So there are a lot of issues like that that are all going to be on the horizon as places like Portland and individual states, start to embrace legalization. There's a whole legal minefield out there to walk through yet.
There'll be plenty of subjects to cover, and I look forward to you covering them. Harry Smith, thank you so much for this documentary, and thank you for calling in today. Appreciate talking to you.
Take care, Russ.
All right. Check it out. It's Marijuana Country, The Cannabis Boom, tonight at 9 o'clock Eastern and Pacific time. That's all the time we've got here for the Russ Belville Show, Hour 1, but stay tuned. Hour 2 is coming up next. It's Toker Talk Radio. The phone lines are open at 971-533-7111. If you got any comments, questions, or just want to chat, share a bowl, we'll be here for you. For everyone here at 420radio.org, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, take care of each other, Tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it,